It's good to
There
be
we
back.
go.
Yes.
It is good to be back. Hi, everybody.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Oh my gosh, we have so much to talk about.
So
Oh,
much
much.
to cover.
Yes. Also, I have to just first say, because Super DTG, Andy is in the chat. This was a present from Andy, my honorary Riker
Yeah.
shirt for all the Star Trek stuff this past 3 or 4 months. So thank you all. It's been
Perfect.
a fun adventure. All right, but we are here to talk about Deep Space Nine.
Yes.
A lot of Deep Space Nine.
A lot. Some little fuzzy rememberings of past episodes, so we'll see.
So we are going to look forward to the input from the chat on some of these, because it's been a while since we watched them. But the ones we're going to talk about are essentially, I think it's episode 16 of season 3, Destiny, all the way through the end of season 3, which is episode 26 or something. So
Yeah.
we have a lot of episodes. We are going to we're going to recap them, kind of focus on, one or two if this is your first time catching us, because it's obviously been a few months. I have watched a lot of Deep Space Nine.
You've watched a lot of Star Trek in general.
Yes, I think that's fair to say. And Samantha is watching it for the first time.
Yes.
Well, Deep Space Nine, at least.
Yes. We've covered Voyager and Next Gen, and now we're on Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's been really, really fun, though. And Deep Space Nine is my personal favorite series, so I am thrilled to do this. But
yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, really, really good. So we'll go through episode by episode. We'll just kind of do a quick recap, hit, the highlights. Feel free in the chat to add in your thoughts on all of these. We're going to kind of go a little extra long. Normally we just do an hour, but because we have so many episodes to get through, we'll probably spill over a little bit. We've kind of planned for 2 hours. If we go that long, great. If we don't, then we'll just leave it. But all right, are you ready?
Go. Yeah.
And hi to everyone in the chat. It's nice to see everyone's names back after so long of not being here.
Yeah.
So, yay. Okay. So the first one we're going to talk about is Destiny. Now, this is season 3 of Deep Space Nine. This is where they've reached out to a group of Cardassians to help them set up, I think, subspace relays. I wrote that and then I meant to go check it and then I forgot to go check it, but I think it was subspace relays.
Something like that.
Something like that, to set up communication through the wormhole to the Gamma Quadrant. And then one of the religious leaders from Bajor comes to talk to Sisko, and he's like, dude, we've got like a whole prophecy thing that basically is a lot like this, talks about 3 vipers and a sword, and and all of this is very similar, so please don't do what you're doing. And it's actually a really good episode. I think we struggle sometimes, us personally, with the religion ones, but this is a good one. I think it's really good. So what were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this was I like seeing the religion stuff come in, particularly when Kira is so involved, because she sort of is still sort of oscillating between, like, I'm a major on Deep Space Nine and I have allegiance to Starfleet in this certain regard and this and that, but then she oscillates between that and like super dedication and diligence to Bajoran traditions and religion, and her home and her allegiance to Bajor from her time fighting so hard for it and for her culture. So this was one of those fun ones to see a lot more of her character get fleshed out in that regard. And she she believes it. Essentially, she believes the prophecy, and it goes into faith. It's all about faith. And then when Sisko gets involved with it, I love that part too, because he was like, we're back. It's true. We're here. We're alive. And then toward the end, like when they're talking about it, Sisko, it's about faith. It's like how you could interpret those prophecies. And if you he says, I think it says to Dax, if you interpret them a certain way, they seem like they'd be true.
Yeah. And
So
I
I mean,
think,
that's really interesting.
yeah, it is. And D Starfire mentioned, like, not surprisingly, it's incredibly vague and useless without tons of assumptions
Right.
and guesswork. But, that's what I think is interesting, too, is that they almost take us on that journey where they are assuming or thinking that the three Vipers are one thing, and then only
Mm-hmm.
two Cardassians show up, and then there's a third one. And it's like, is it the stars or is it the Cardassians? And so it kind of
Exactly.
changes as you go. But I think what you made the really good point about Kira and the religion that I think is really interesting in this episode, because while we as viewers have seen Kira in other circumstances, like with the Kai and all of those, we know that she's really religious, and we know
Mm-hmm.
that the Bajoran religion means a lot to her. But the difference is that she admits to Cisco for the first time that she does believe that he's like the prophecy, that she
Right.
believes that he's there, and for a reason. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
first time that she's ever admitted to him that she does actually believe, because she's always
Right.
wanted to stay professional, and that's what I think is really interesting.
Yeah, I think that's like the clinch point of this episode was them communicating that she's communicating her full honesty to him, her full truth in that moment.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bad Panda Bear said the twist with the Bajoran religion in Deep Space Nine is that there's a secular explanation that the prophets are aliens with a nonlinear view of time that can give accurate prophecies. And I do think that that's
Mm-hmm.
really cool that they have created them. It's like they do experience time where we experience it that way. They experience it like that.
Yeah.
So they're kind of out of our time stream. And so it does kind of work. And that's where they push back on that prophecy where they're like, dude, but like, you've dealt with the prophets. Like, weird stuff happens, and how do you not know that, like, they put this in? And then of course for me it's like the pushback is like, yeah, but it's super vague, like you could have been
Right.
a little bit more explicit.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
There's
Like Umber Song
vagueness
said,
is
yeah.
the name of the game.
Yeah. Exactly. But I think the whole Kira thing and her admitting to Cisco that she believes he is who he is in the Bajoran religion, is that it's a nice late stage character development for her to be comfortable enough in her role as the second in command to be able to say that to him without worrying that that's going to change their relationship. So that's a good
Yeah, exactly. The way that they've grown together, like, it has been really, they've taken their time with that, which I really appreciate. It seems like it's a very organic friendship that has arisen out of them knowing each other.
Yeah, I think it works really well. All right. Any sort of odd one-off observations in this one?
Well, we had the B plot was O'Brien with that Cardassian lady.
Oh yeah, because the Cardassians are on to like help with the station.
Yeah.
And it turns out that she's like got a thing for him. And
she does, but it was so funny how that happened. I think, and I watched it a while ago, so I could be misremembering, but it was like there's a moment when they're fixing the thing and she's like, I am attracted to this person. I shall tell him and we shall get married. It was like, she was very, but I'm attracted to you. Why should we not pursue this? And he's like, I'm married. And she's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But it was very like matter of fact for her.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny too because before she admits that, your understanding of Cardassian flirting is obviously very different. Where they keep arguing about stuff. She's like, I like you. And he's like, wait, what?
What? That's like playground flirting. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
He's being mean to you because he likes you.
Exactly.
Wonderful.
I do really like the discussion as well, where he's like installing the second backup, and she's like, you have a second backup? And he's like, don't you? She's like, no. It's like, well, what if the first backup goes down? Like, of course we're gonna have multiple backups, and it's just this like total disconnect of that's really funny.
Complete disconnect. And I think there was a moment when they were like, we don't include all the information in our reports or something. And Cisco was like, we do reporting very differently.
Yeah, exactly. And so D Starfire's got some excellent points just about the prophecies and that there has to be that human element in there. And then I love Laura's comment for us Garrick/Bashir fans that they have canonized that Cardassians flirt by debating.
Oh, yes, I like that.
You're not wrong.
Mm.
All right, awesome.
Canon.
Canon. All right.
I'm calling it.
Let me see. So the next episode we have is Profit Motive. It's a Ferengi episode.
Oh, right. Right.
So the main plot is that the Grand Nagus has come to Deep Space Nine with a whole new list of rules of acquisition. The rules of acquisitions have been updated and changed, and we are going to learn things, and we're going to be better species. And it just breaks everything, and we'll get into the details of that because it's adorable. And then the subplot, which I also think is actually a really interesting one, is that Bashir gets nominated for this big award. I think it's the Carrington Award, where he's like the youngest person ever to be nominated, and everyone's really excited for him. I think Dax is the one who nominated him, and he's just like super awkward about it, and it's kind of a good one. But let's talk about the Ferengi philosophy on the rules of acquisition.
Oh, so funny. That was so good. I mean, poor Rom. Like, I'm falling in love with him so much more after this series of episodes. Like, he's just, he always gets the short end of the stick as like a Ferengi with more moral grounding than like any of them.
Exactly.
It's like he just wants to be like a normal person, like not a normal person necessarily, but he just wants to be like a good guy, and he just constantly gets shuffled under the foot of Quark. And this one, he's like, so this is like Rom's shining moment. He's like, yes, these rules of acquisition should be how we operate. This is my time to shine. This is like, finally somebody else agrees with how I would approach it. Yeah. And he becomes the leader of the Ferengi Benevolent Association. I was like, yes!
It's so good. I love it.
That was
so
awesome.
Much.
Yeah. And Quark is just there like, what is happening?
Yeah, it's so great. Hey, Tumor Boy. I love this episode. And he comes in and he's just like, every listing off of the new rules of acquisition, like he said, Rom is on it. He's just like, yeah, and then we just give our profits away and we share our wealth with others. And Quark cannot comprehend what is happening.
Right.
It's so great. I thought that this episode was very apropos for this week about the philosophy of financial management shifting and becoming more aware for a lot of people.
Yes.
That we realize that we are at the hands of the Ferengi.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Ferengi own Wall Street.
Yep. This is true. But it's really fun. And I think like the overall theme that I really like is this idea of the fragility of the hero worship, right? That they have the Grand Nagus and they're supposed to do everything that he says. And so when he comes in, and of course we find out at the end that he, was given this seed by the prophets, and like he had this awakening and then kind of gets shaken out of it. But he comes in and he's like, all right, it's all different. We have all new philosophies. And Quark's like,
what do I do?
So we have to follow this now. And so I think that's very, very funny. Yeah. Giving away our wealth. It's so good.
It's funny, like Quark is so interesting because he like follows the Grand Nagus, and this is the hierarchy. We need to do what he says. But Quark's also like, he could be so much better because he's got like natural entrepreneurial spirit, and like he's deep down kind of got like niceness in him, like we've seen that. But then he just constantly doesn't go the next step further to like actually be a good person.
Yes, exactly. It's so close. He was so close.
Yeah, so close. Then it's just Quark, and we still love him.
Yeah. There was a nice callback to stem bolts that they had to shuffle and get rid of, and he was like,
self-stealing
stem bolts. We love when those
say
it. Self-sealing stem bolts.
Say it 5 times fast.
And I do love so Muhammad agrees that Quark does struggle to fight the Ferengi values, and that's kind of cute. And
Yeah.
I wonder if it's because we'll talk about this in a later Ferengi episode in this set, but where you get more of a reveal into his own personal struggle with that. But I think also he's exposed to people who are Ferengis day in and day out.
Right.
And the Ferengis he does hang out with, who are Rom and Nog, are fully rejecting that.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's a huge part of it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So let's talk about the Bashir storyline here, because I find this one really, really interesting. Do you want to dig into this one? I think you had some notes on this.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was interesting because Bashir, I think in a couple of these episodes, we sort of see him struggle with his own feelings of inadequacy and his own feelings of ambition, pride. Like he's sort of wrestling with his accomplishments.
And sorry to interrupt. I will let you continue, but I want to make a point for the people in the chat that Samantha has not watched this whole series. So any future Bashir storylines have not been released yet.
Yes.
So bear that in mind.
No spoilers.
Try to keep the chat spoiler free. Try. Carry on.
Please try.
Yeah.
So this episode, I felt like he was. I kind of loved that the people around him who were supporting him and excited about this weren't quite understanding his reluctance, or Dax tried to do this really wonderful thing by nominating him because what they're seeing is somebody who's super accomplished and he's like top of his game. He deserves this. That's what they're seeing. But what he's seeing is, why would you do this to me? There's so many other people in this category who are more, have done so much more than me. So he's not interpreting what they're seeing the same way. And yet by the end of the episode, I think, if I remember correctly, he is a little disappointed that he doesn't receive it, but he comes back around to that and says, well, I've got time, And that was a really interesting sort of circle. I liked it a lot. Yeah,
which I think is, it's interesting because you don't ever see him really explicitly lay it out. Like there's not this big denouement, moment where he lays out all of his feelings about it. You just have that awkwardness when they celebrate. Such an awkward scene where they're all so excited and he's just like, I didn't. Thanks, but no thanks. Like I don't want this, and that sucks that my name is here and the spotlight's on me, and then but they keep poking at it because they all believe in him, and then they catch him. I think I forget if it's Odo or Cisco. Someone catches him writing his acceptance speech.
I think it's Odo. Yeah.
And so finding out that like he does actually kind of want it. And so it's really interesting. And then I think I like what you said about just that idea that he realizes like he's got time for this, which I think is relatable to a lot of people. I mean, myself and others who are trying to think of, like we want to accomplish our things that we're working on right now. And we have to remind ourselves that like, people don't reach those accomplishments until much later in life, and you put in those hours, and there is a lot of disappointment, and so it's interesting.
I think about like if you like the entertainment industry, actors who get Oscars when they're like, 20 or something, and how that could potentially play with your brain a little bit and be like, oh, I don't have to work as hard now, or things like that. Could be an adverse effect of it.
And then you think of all the people who are in their 20s and just think, well, I should be getting those. Like, why am I not getting that? Yeah.
Exactly.
That's not how the majority of it works. But in D Starfire kind of mentioned that too, that it's like, it feels like it's an award for old people. It reminds me of, sorry, go on.
Oh, it's because not to diminish like accomplishments of young people. Like that's awesome. But it also, I do think, to your point, it creates such a odd competition sense in this like like those, 30 under 30 lists and stuff. Like, I hate that stuff because it's like,
I hate those.
Yes, your accomplishment was amazing and you should absolutely be, celebrated for it. But that everyone accomplishes things at their own pace.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It reminded me, and this was where I was taking a left turn, but then it also ties to Deep Space Nine, so I'm actually not ashamed of bringing this up, but it reminds me of a Frasier episode that actually stars Renee Auberjonois, who plays Odo, where Frasier gets the Lifetime Achievement Award.
Yes.
And he has a major meltdown about it because he feels like, but does that, like, he feels like his career's over.
Yeah.
And Renee Auberjonois plays his mentor. It's great.
Fabulous. That's right. Oh, yeah. I can totally, yeah.
Dr.
That's a great episode.
Yeah, but it's like this, and I get to the sense that some of those, like, that Bashir is feeling some of that as well. If it's like, okay, well, if I win this, does this mean that my career is over? Or it's like, do I have to now keep achieving at the same rate for the rest of my life, which is also intimidating. So
so we get you, Bashir. We're on your page.
Yeah, exactly. No, D Starfire, that's the beginning of season 3. I think this arc is in season 6. I want to say 6 or 7.
It's a little bit later.
7. Yeah. But this is Renee Auberjonois is a recurring character, I think, for 2 or 3 episodes because he dates Roz later, and it's just one of my favorite scenes ever. If you ever want to see Odo skipping through an apartment wearing a very short robe, you can watch that. Look up his Frasier episodes.
That's great.
All right. Anyway, we love him. All right. This was the beginning of Darts. Prophet Motive was the beginning of Darts. So much Darts. We love it.
So much Darts.
Yeah, then basically, I mean, this is going to keep, because this is a growing thing, but this was the beginning where O'Brien is teaching Bashir how to play darts.
Is this the one where he shows Quark, and Quark like just throws the darts and they hit Morn in the chest?
I think that's the next episode.
That's the next one.
Next one is where he has it installed. Maybe.
I did a lot of rewatching these last night, so they're all kind of mending together.
That's okay. That's all right. But we love the darts and the bromance. Okay, so the next episode is an O'Brien Must Suffer episode. This is a Visionary. This is a good time travel episode. This is one where I think he gets shocked by an accident, which included, I think, chronoton radiation, which is usually their go-to for time particles in Deep Space Nine.
Cool.
And he can see like 5 hours ahead in the future, and so he's like doing this constantly. And in terms of time travel, I think it's a pretty interesting episode. But
it's solid because they realize, like, I love that they just, first of all, I love there's a moment in the beginning when like he's done it once, and then he goes to the moment with Quark that he sees again, and when he sees himself across the promenade. Right. And Quark looks at him and then looks, and at first I wasn't sure if Quark saw the other O'Brien or not, but he just sort of looks at O'Brien, then looks at the other O'Brien, and he says, well, you've got bigger problems.
Yeah, right.
But he's not like freaking out that there's 2 O'Briens in the same. It's like, yep, well, that checks out.
Yeah. I mean, as you've noted and pointed out before, that people get used to weird stuff in Starfleet.
They do, but then they also have these moments when there's something that's not actually that weird, and they're like, what's going on?
Right. Yeah, but I like it because Mohammed asked the question, like, if each of his visions are creating another timeline because it's influencing the decisions that are made.
Yeah.
And this was the question I had about the end of an episode. So, for example, there's the moment where he sees himself in a corridor get killed. Like, he gets shocked and killed. And then they investigate what was there. There's nothing there. So he says, okay, well, in the next 5 hours, there's going to be something planted in this hallway that's going to kill me in 5 hours.
Right.
And then then they get the notice that, like, the Romulans are, like, Kira is moving the Romulans to that corridor.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what sets off that timeline. So they do a good job, because I think that this episode... Time travel is always so hard, because you have to try to make all that consistent. And so they do a good job through 90% of the episode, I would say, of it all being self-consistent. Like, they only make small changes that end up changing the timeline so that future doesn't happen. That he has a vision of what could happen and then changes it. Until the end. And this is when, and I might need some help from you, and I might need some help from the chat on this. O'Brien talks to his future self.
Yeah.
And the future self is the one who's okay, and the current O'Brien is sick with radiation poisoning because he was trying to correct something.
They rigged something that could help him control the jumps.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So he could go to a specific time.
That's right. And and to see what's happening with the Romulans, he finds out that they have stashed a Romulan bird of prey. That's no, not bird of prey. Warbird. Other species. Romulan warbird.
easy mistake to make.
Thank you. Just that it's cloaked, and that he was detecting, like, the singularity from their engine. And but that O'Brien that went to go see this, that has been the one that we've been following, is now, like, sick and dying from the radiation poisoning of controlling all these time jumps, talks to the current O'Brien, who then goes back through their technology. So now, technically, do we have a different O'Brien than what we started with?
I mean, he alludes to that at the end and says, like, I feel like I'm not supposed to be here. Like, this isn't actually my life. Which, to me, I get that. So, yes, I think he is technically a different... He's different, but the same. It's not like it's not like he comes from an entirely different adjacent timeline. You know, it's because he's the same person, and it's not like he was switched with, like, the fake O'Brien from the season 2 or something,
right? Or like the Harry Kim clone ship. That the Harry Kim we end with is not the same one we started with.
Exactly. It's not even like that.
Yeah.
Like, so to me, it's the same guy.
Yeah. It's just a recent branch.
Yeah.
Like Muhammad said. Maybe, Andy, the quantum signature may be slightly off, but it's not a totally different universe. It's just...
Right. And like somebody said, I think it might have been Quark or Bashir, somebody said you just have a few more memories that the other one didn't have.
Right.
Because you're just, like, 5 hours ahead of time.
Right. And saw yourself die, and it's all... Yeah. It's all an adventure. Temporal mechanics.
I love that scene when they both say, I hate temporal mechanics. I was like, same. Same.
Hard same.
I
love it. Yes, that to the discussion about the bird of prey warbird thing, that it is the same model from TOS. So in TOS they had the same model, they just painted it differently. And I think just flipped the wings, if I remember. Because I think if you buy one of the old, like, Klingon or bird of prey ship models, I think you can have them be either one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I built a Klingon ship out of that.
Budget constraints?
Maybe. Yeah, so good times. And then Andy mentioned, like, with Worf, I think that's a separate one, too, because he was literally jumping through quantum multiverses.
Yeah.
Which we've established exist, that we have, like, that's that quantum multiverse idea that you exist in infinite combinations. But I think with this one, this is you have your primary timeline, and then it's just doing this, because O'Brien can see into the future, they're just re-correcting it, and then one of these dudes jump back, and that's the O'Brien that we have. Yeah,
he's seeing himself. He's not seeing another O'Brien.
Right, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. IDIC, infinite diversity and infinite combinations through time. And then, yeah, they installed darts in the bar, which we love.
Darts.
All right. The next one is Distant Voices. This is the one where Bashir and Garrick are having lunch, and some weird dude, Quark, comes up with some weird guy who's named Altovar, who wants to buy this banned medical substance from Bashir. Bashir's like, yo, no, and you need to stop asking that because it's a problem that you're even asking. And Bashir's grappling with getting older, turning 30.
Yeah!
The horror! And then he starts, and then things get weird. He starts rapidly aging, and then we find out that, like, he's in a coma, and he's just, like, aging in his brain. And I don't know. What'd you think of this one?
I like these kinds of episodes. These are fun to have the one character centric, and then, you know, him grappling within his brain, you know, of all this stuff happening. And it was cool that, you know, everyone else played a version, like, they weren't playing themselves. They were playing aspects of Bashir's personality. And I like, that was cool. But dude, Star Trek is really hit and miss with the old age makeup.
Yeah.
The
aging
prosthetics
makeup is
are
always
awesome.
rough. Yeah.
But I mean, that was distracting. Honestly, it was just kind of like, ooh, no.
Yeah. They always, it's so funny because we talked about this with the finale to TNG, because that skips ahead to essentially where the actors are now.
Right.
And how much older they are. And we were like, they did not give them credit. But I think, you know, to try to give them the makeup artists a little bit of credit, it's like you do have to distinguish that they're getting older by making them extra old.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And old age makeup is always hard. Other than, like, the best I've ever seen was, like, recently in Endgame, in Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
Like, that was spectacular on Captain America. But other than that, like, it's not easy to do. No. But Bashir acted through it. Like,
as D. Starfire said, he's walking around the station with a broken hip, being super crotchety.
Yep. He did. He really took. He committed.
Yes, he committed.
So I liked it.
Yeah, and it's funny because when we break up these episodes into about 6, we're obviously doing a lot today, but we've started to notice themes, that you get series of episodes that kind of stick with one character and show a little bit of growth with them. And I think you put in the notes that, like, that's what we see with Bashir. In these few episodes, we're starting to get this inadequacy that Bashir feels. Like I said, I don't want to spoil anything for you because we'll learn a little bit more about Bashir's past, but they do set that up really, really well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they are setting it up because there's, like, almost 3 in a row in the set that we're talking about today where Bashir is, like, just wrestling with so much inadequacy and feeling that others of his peers are doing more important things than he is, like the one we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah.
But he's totally misinterpreting it. So it's basically a complex that he's just not seeing. And we all do that. Like, we don't see the awesome things in ourselves or things that we think are, you know, we're failing at or behind. Other people are seeing completely different awesomeness that we don't see. So he's really dealing with that. And yeah, it's
only the interesting thing though is it's only, and I think what Bashir learns is it's only when you open up about your feelings of inadequacy that you get that reassurance, and when you just bury it, it ends up being destructive.
It does, and it can end up fulfilling your own prophecy of I'm not as good, because then if you just become an Eeyore about it, no, people are not going to continue to see everything. You know, that's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah, and imposters. I mean, I am a huge not advocate for try to educate on imposter syndrome. That's that idea that, because I had a very good pep talk when I was in academia from my boss after my PhD when I was a postdoc, and he sat me down and had a really good talk with me about imposter syndrome. And he just said, he was like, you need to understand, everyone feels like that they've cheated their way to the top, that they will be found out as a fraud at any point. And everyone feels that way.
Yeah, and it comes in ebbs and flows. I mean, I've dealt with it so much, and I just started a new position, and I'm dealing with it a lot. Yay!
Yeah. Yay! New
Good
job.
times.
Yeah.
Yay! And I have been dealing with it because I'm now in a place in my career where I've been hired for specific skills and things that I've cultivated, but like I cultivated them in a very specific environment. So now I'm in a different environment. I'm like, oh God, I have to live up to what I'm supposed to be doing. Right. And it's like, it's a lot.
Yeah. Like, at what point am I going to be found out to be a fraud? And
right.
That's a hard feeling to overcome.
Yeah, it's really, yeah. But I like that they're sort of dealing with that in these episodes with Bashir. They're talking about it. Yeah. And because he is so awesome and smart. I mean, you're in Starfleet. Right. Like, right. You don't get there by being an imposter.
Right. And I think that, but you can see how someone as young as he is and where he's at and what he's achieved, he could feel like he's just gamed the system, which, again, right. No spoilers, we'll talk about in the future. And you have lots of congrats in the chat for your new job, so congratulations.
Thank you so much.
But yeah, let's all shake our fist one time at Bashir for being frustrated about turning 30.
Yes.
Awesome.
It's so old. Oh.
The horror. But Garrick, I think, does have a great moment before the whole plot unfolds, where he is like, I'm in a bad mood because I'm turning 30 and I'm getting old. And Garrick's like, I don't understand this human fear of aging. Being old means you're awesome and a warrior and a badass. Like, why is that? I'm like, thank you, Garrick. Just tell me that all the time.
Right.
That's so good. I love it. All right. So the next one, we probably won't spend a ton of time on because we talked about ones to emphasize and ones to not, and this one didn't quite make the cut because not a lot happens in this one. This episode is called Through the Looking Glass, and this is the second DS9 Mirror Universe episode where Smiley O'Brien comes and takes Cisco to the Mirror Universe because his mirror counterpart has died. His mirror wife, Jennifer, is still alive and needs to be, and is helping the rebellion. That was it. And so he has to convince Jennifer to join the rebels or the rebels will kill her.
Yeah.
It's okay. Mirror universes are fun.
Yeah. I mean, it was, yeah. Jen was the best part. Jen and Cisco at the end of the episode. That was like the best part.
That was a nice moment.
Yeah.
Also, Mikhail, that's adorable, and you are a great parent. That's awesome. Yeah, and so, do we think he told Prime Jadzia what happened? I wouldn't tell Prime Jadzia what happened in there. Just saying. I think the thing this episode, like you said, there's that scene with Jennifer. There's some Jadzia feelings that get borne out a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. That. But I think that what it's doing is setting ourselves up for what comes in the future episodes where he starts to actually have a relationship. I think this was to close out Jennifer and to close out any portent that people had about him and Jadzia.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the closure aspect that he had with Jen in particular was really, really sweet. And important, because he's clearly still holding on to a lot of that, and that was great that he got that,
Yeah, exacther Other than that, you just get to see everyone goof around in their evil versions of themselves.
Yeah. Other than that, it was just like more evil Kira cosplay ideas. That's about it.
Yes. Yeah. Hard endorse. That's so funny. All right. So let's go to my favorite one of my favorites, maybe my favorite two-parter in all of Deep Space Nine, which is the Garrick Obsidian Order in Auburntane two-parter. So we'll talk about these together. This is the episodes are Improbable Cause and The Die is Cast. Essentially what happens is this is where Garrick's shop gets blown up. The Romulans are under suspicion because they've been dealing with Romulans wanting to do what they want to do with the Dominion. And then they discover that multiple members of the Obsidian Order have been assassinated, which points to Garrick being targeted. And then they go find Enob Brentane, who was like Garrick's boss in the Obsidian Order. Then he recruits Garrick, who agrees to join him again to help with a joint operation between the Obsidian Order and the Romulans to take on the Dominion. And it's so good. It's so good.
So good.
So good.
So good.
Okay, so first, because I rewatch the Garrick episodes like all the time, even outside of our rewatch, so I have no idea where you are with knowing what Garrick is. Please enlighten me.
Well, neither am I.
Valid and accurate.
Like, you left on our notes like, Samantha, it'd be fun if you could recap what you know about Garrick at this point. And I was like,
Right.
But, okay, so I really don't know. But this episode, these two-parter was actually really interesting because there was a lot of richness to Garrick and to his character just became fully like fleshed out and not like not completely, of course, but like he just became so much more of a full character to me in terms of like his relationship with how do you pronounce it? Enob Brentane.
Yeah.
And the way that he like accepts his offer to join by the end of the first parter, to me, like normally I see Garrick like making decisions and he's always the one thinking like 5 steps ahead.
Yeah.
And thinking diagonally, like
5 steps ahead and to the diagonal.
Right, exactly. Like, I need to do this so that I can do this, so that then I can prove to this, so that then I can go back to the good guys. But this was one moment where I was like looking for that and I couldn't see it.
Yeah.
So, but that's what's great about Garrick. It's like you just don't know. I mean, he accepted the offer to join and he kind of like steps over to like the dark side basically and like does that great handshake and looks at Odo and Odo's like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
So there's all of that. And then like, so.
Yeah. There is, Mikhail was telling me to stretch and hydrate, so thank you. Oh. So that's what I was doing. But P. Stemish had one of the funniest statements where it was like, I have to scroll back up to it. What Garrick says and what reality is are often 3 different things. Tourboy said, I know that, number 1, I know he's Cardassian. Number 2, I know I love him. End of list. And then Music Paladin said this 2-parter is one of the closest to a perfect DS9 episode, in my opinion. It is perfectly balanced. And it is. D. Starfire, I think I put that in the notes, in the second part, at the very end of the first part, where he's talking to Garrick, he says something literally like the Emperor says...
Join me.
Yeah, join me. Yeah. He says, join me, and we can accomplish this. And I'm like, dude.
Yeah. And he does.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So then, like,
he
blows up.
Yeah.
Right. What is he? Yeah. He because then in the second parter, when he's torturing Odo, you can tell that that's torturing him. Like, he doesn't want to be doing that, clearly. Right. And that's a black and white moment. But prior to when he was working with the Obsidian Order, clearly maybe he did enjoy it at that time.
Right.
So now it's because he knows Odo, or is it because he's changed?
Yeah. I think... So I broke up the two themes of this episode that seem like they're the same thing, but I think they're actually separate. It's like, because Garrick is such an enigma, which we've established, but it's like the first one is his relationship with the Nobrantane and the Obsidian Order, which obviously is way deeper than we can comprehend.
Yeah.
It's like far beyond a Sith apprentice relationship. This is more of like he loves an Nobrantane.
Yeah.
And him being exiled by a Nobrantane obviously was super destructive to him as a Cardassian. As I was about to say as a human, but I just mean like his soul was destroyed by being punished by a Nobrantane.
Right, which led me to kind of wonder if that's maybe one of his only blind spots, is an Nobrantane. Like,
yeah,
could be.
I would definitely argue that that's a point that he definitely could. That he's one of those few people that actually does have a hold over Garrick, and the other ones we don't necessarily would think that. And so he has this, and because it's his past. Oh man, I can't, Andrew. That's cruel. We can't do that. Okay. I have to stop talking because Andrew redeemed my in real life voice band. So Samantha gets to wax poetically about this episode for a few minutes. So carry on. That was for gaming. I forgot to disable it for this one.
What?
Carry on.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Garrick, the other thing I loved about this episode was like, we're seeing more and more of, you know, who he is, who he might have been before. And then the scene, like we were talking about the torture scene with Odo, and I just love that he is clearly ripped up about what he's doing. But you don't know like what he's going to do with the information he receives. You know, immediately is he, and we find out that then he doesn't give the information, the one piece of information he gets from Odo, he doesn't deliver to Nobrantane. And that was a great moment too, because then, I mean, you always end a Garrick episode seeing where his allegiance then lies. So at the end of the first parter, it was with a Nobrantane, and then the end of the second parter, it was back with Starfleet. But Andrew, I don't like what you did to me.
That's okay. I love it. That was cool. We'll absolve Samantha of that, but well played, sir. Well played. I love it. Let me see. So I think you mentioned, like, I think when the loyalty shifts is when he is hurting Odo, and when Odo does open up to him, and he's like, "Nope, don't like that." And
I made that happen.
Yeah.
I
think that's the interesting thing too. Is I think from a character standpoint and how good Garrick is the fact that he hides his pain from his friends on Deep Space Nine. Like, I think he literally is who he is on Deep Space Nine because it hurts too much to talk about the Obsidian Order. But we love him so dearly.
We do. We love him. And the great part about this episode, that I just rewatched the first part of this morning, the boy who cried wolf part.
Oh, yeah.
That was great, because it was like, are you sure that's the meaning of the story? It's just don't tell the same lie twice. He like completely misses the point, but he's interpreting it as Garrick.
Yeah, exactly. Music Paladin made a very good point here. They said, I think the torture cuts Garrick because the admission of Odo is the one thing he understands, the desire to go home to his people. That's really profound. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Yes. And Mikhail asked Samantha to stretch and hydrate.
Stretch!
Yep.
I don't...
The other So a few kind of one-off things. Garrick has figured out Odo's in love with someone, which we've been building these threads, and I have strong opinions about. You'll see me fangirl about as we go through this. I love, so yeah, the boy who cried wolf, the being in love with someone, that O'Brien is one of Bashir's best friends, but he doesn't fulfill the conversation in the same way. I loved Bashir trying to have a very deep, profound conversation with O'Brien, and O'Brien's like, okay.
Yeah.
Good point. And it's like, but that's so true. Like, I have friends that I have different conversations with, and it doesn't mean they're any more or less friends. It's just...
Yeah, you're right. It's like they're, with him and with Bashir and Garrick, it's like, yeah, they would wax poetic, like, till the cows come home. And with O'Brien, it's more like, the sports and the darts and the racquetball and all that stuff that they kind of bond around. So the conversation side is a little bit less apparent.
Yeah. It's their bromance. It's a bromance.
Bromance. It's a complete bromance.
Bashir and Garrick, however, is more.
That's... Oh, yes. 100%.
We 100%. Just have to, we're just projecting that, and Andrew made the good point. Garrick was a spy who couldn't be one because of what happened to him, and it just hurt so much, so he created the mask, and I think that's really good. The difficult, and Mikhail mentioned the difficulty of feeling belonging to people, and then when your people are doing wrong, is very difficult. It's a good point. The few other points. First of all, I mean, I'm curious what you're thinking of this Dominion War as it's being built up, but this is a good one because you see... I'll let you answer in a second, but you see the Cardassians and the Tal Shiar, so basically the Obsidian Order and the Tal Shiar, these underground organizations from very violent species. Violent might not be the right word, but you know what I mean. They just take the, like, all right, we're going to go to war, we're going to wipe them out, we've got the technology, we've got the strategy, we're going to take them on, and they're going down, and if Starfleet doesn't want to help us, fine, screw them, we're doing this.
It's our fight.
Yeah, so they go, and they try to do it, and they get owned. They realize they take down this planet, they're going in guns blazing, and then they're like, oh, the life signs aren't changing. That was a simulation, and then 120 Jem'Hadar ships show up out of the void and start taking them down. Like, that's hardcore.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, I guess I'm still really confused about what the motivation is of the Dominion. Like,
total power.
And total, but I guess, we don't know why. Like, we don't, and they're the founders, right? The Dominion's the founders.
Yeah. So that was the end of the previous season, is where you discover that the founders are the ones who are running the Dominion. They're like in charge.
The Dominion.
Yeah. The
Right.
I'm sorry, I've got different sci-fi franchises in my head right now. The Jem'Hadar are their, like, warriors. Like, they're the ones who are fighting the front lines. And then I don't think you've met any of the Vorcha yet.
I feel like I've heard that.
Okay. I think you may... Actually, no, the Vorcha, that was the Vorcha. Franchises. That was the one where she was stuck in the prison with Nog and Cisco.
Yeah.
And so then and then revealed that, like, they actually kind of, they're like the middle management of the Dominion.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you, Vorta.
Dominion is everywhere.
Right. And so, there's basically this fear of, like, what you're saying, that you don't know what the Dominion's strategy is and, like, what they want. I think that's the point. We just know that we're supposed to be scared of them. And
and I am.
Valid. Yeah.
Yep. So then, like, this two-parter was interesting rewatching the first part this morning, because you realize that the one Romulan was a shapeshifter the whole time. And he could have been other people too. Who knows? But at the very end, he is revealed to be one of the founders. So it's like they're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah, that's. Whew, I get chills.
Yeah.
So good.
And the one other thing I wanted to ask about these episodes was the informant that Odo has in the Cardassian, military or something. Is that Garrick?
It seemed like it found out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if that's ever revealed. I think it's revealed.
It seems
later,
like,
but
yeah, it sort of seemed like it was almost obvious that they were making that clear, but I wasn't sure. And it could also be a shapeshifter too. Who knows?
Right, exactly. See, now you're buying into the Deep Space Nine.
They're all shapeshifters.
They're all shapeshifters. Yeah, exactly.
I don't want that to be the case. But now I'm like questioning things.
I'm so excited. I'm so glad we're getting into season 4. There's some great ones.
God damn it.
Exactly. Non-Dairy Neutrino. Hi, welcome. I love your username. That's fabulous. Yeah. Is anyone here not a founder? That's awesome. I love the final scene where Garrick is in his blown up tailor shop, cleaning up, wiping the thing off. Mm-hmm. Sad. At a loss. And you see Odo's reflection, and he turns around to talk to Odo, and Odo basically invites him to have breakfast with him at some point. And he's like, you don't have breakfast. And he's like, I know. But the beauty, I think, with that scene, and if you haven't watched it recently, go back and watch it, but it stays on Garrick the whole time. And all you see is Odo's reflection. And it's just such a good moment.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah. That literally just reminds me, when you said it stays on Garrick the whole time. I was watching an interview with an actor, I can't remember who. Bex Mader from Once Upon a Time was answering a question about her acting process, and she says, when you watch something, look at the editing and see who they focus on. See the person who's listening or the person who's talking. And if they focus on the person who's listening, like, as an actor, you have to learn to listen, and you have to, you can't just wait for your line, and them focusing on Garrick in that moment, like, is so profound, and he's receiving this invitation from Odo, and it's a lot to take in.
It's so good. I've got to scroll back up. Andrew asked a good question, and I think this is more for the hardcore Star Trek group in the chat. Wondering if the shapeshifter from Star Trek Undiscovered Country is the same as the changelings. Good question.
I have no way to answer that.
Hi, Turquoise. I'm glad you're here. No, different species is what Tumor Boy says, and Sky Chef. Okay, so established. See? This is why I love the chat. And then Tumor Boy also mentioned the scenes that take place in Garrick's shop, in my opinion, are the best of Deep Space Nine, and I agree. But I think that, to your point about the acting and he's amazing. He's amazing.
Yeah, amazing.
And I've mentioned this before, but I think I actually I do have the book now. If people haven't read this, go read this. We're talking about the consequential episodes that take place. This is written by the actor who played Garrick, and this is it's called A Stitch in Time, and it's essentially Garrick's story. So if you want to know more about his relationship with Anna Brentane, that you find out more from Deep Space Nine, I recommend. Yes, very hard to find. It is out of print, but you can get digital copies. I have this one signed. Yes, I did lose my brain.
So cool.
All right. Anyway, highly, highly, highly recommend.
Awesome.
All right. Pete Stemish asked, I wonder how many shapeshifting species exist? That's a good question. And yeah, the last episode, we talked a little bit more about the shapeshifters and all that, and it was good to see you too, Tumor Boy. No worries. Okay, shall we move on?
Let's do it.
All right. Explorers. This is a sciencey one. Oh, Daib, no worries. We have been on for an hour, but we're hanging out a little extra today since it's been so long since we've been here and we have lots of episodes to talk about.
Yes.
So Explorers, this is the one where Sisko has been studying Bajoran culture, and believes old legends hold a grain of truth, that ancient Bajorans may have traveled outside their solar system using solar wind, perhaps reaching as far as the Cardassian homeworld. Mm-hmm. Feels like him and Jake haven't had enough time to bond lately, so he convinces Jake to join him, and then Jake's been wanting to tell his dad about his career plans and just hasn't found the right time. And it's such a good episode.
It was so sweet. I loved that it was like, just them together, isolated in this ship that Sisko built with his own hands, and it was really sweet. It was really great to have them have all that time together for us.
It really is.
Yeah.
Think like for like the father-son thing, it's so sweet because we've seen Jake now since he was younger, right?
Yeah.
And now he's in like full teenager mode.
Oh yeah.
It's like, whatever, Dad, I don't want to be here anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. He came on screen and I was like, whoa, he grew up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, I didn't recognize him at first.
Yeah. He and so but what's so sweet about it though is that he basically, like, we find out, like, he's being this is such, like, a teenager thing, right? Is that he's being rude and closed off because he wants to not go to Starfleet. He wants to become a journalist, and he's trying to find the right way to tell his dad that he's been accepted to this, like, school. And instead of opening up and having that hard conversation, which he's afraid to have, he just goes inward and gets very angry and sad. So, yeah. Thank you, David. I think you'd be in the wrong crowd with that one. And I am going to talk about the science behind solar sails, for sure. But, yeah, I think, we got the goatee. Sisko's goatee has appeared now.
It's appeared. I remember seeing people talk about that in the chat, like, from season 1. So I was like, yay, I see it.
Exactly. It's
here.
So good. The goatee has appeared, and it's the Riker beard all over again. It's just a big shift. So good.
Luckily, the Riker beard happened in season 2 of Next Gen.
And DS9 has been much higher quality than season 1 and 2 of TNG.
Yes.
That's beside the point. And we love it. Sisko's reached his final form. Yes, exactly. So I don't know. I mean, any extra thoughts on Jake and his character arc? I mean,
not really. I like seeing him grow, and I like seeing him. I love seeing him and Sisko's scenes together.
Right.
And is this the one where he sets up Sisko with the lady, another lady?
No, I think
that next one.
That's in the next one, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the next episode. So, But again, I think that they're doing a great job of, like, building up to that. Oh my God, Rivals of Waterdeep just rated us with 100 people, and there's about to be a lot of people in here. Oh my God, thank you.
At least he didn't make me talk and not you for them coming in. That was so painful.
Hang on one second. I have to do a shout out here because this is about to get bonkers for a second. And if you haven't found Rivals of Waterdeep, go check them out. They just premiered their season 9 today. So I want to make sure I got the username right because I just have to type it in. Yes. Thank you. Congratulations on your season premiere. I'm overwhelmed. Okay. So welcome. I hope you're Star Trek fans. If you're here in the chat, we're discussing the season 3 of Deep Space Nine. Samantha is watching these for the very first time.
Yes. So no spoilers, please.
Yes. I have watched it a lot. And yes, good times. So we are about to get into some science here, because this is the episode where they build the solar sail, and what they do is they are trying to recreate this voyage that these ancient Bajorans legendarily ended up at Cardassia when they were going on this deep space voyage. And hello, thank you again. You're so nice.
Hi.
Yes, enjoy. I hope your premiere went well, and love and thank you so much. That really meant a lot. I'm very, very touched. And there's so many notifications I can't keep up, but I love every single one of you, and you're amazing. Okay, so the science behind this, the solar sails, right? We love this because solar sails are a thing. And the idea that you basically use a gold sheet or sheet made of material, but gold's really good for it. It gets hit by solar wind, which you have a force, which creates acceleration. And because you're in space, it's just going to keep going at the speed it gets to. And so you can use a solar sail as a very cheap way for deep space exploration. This episode is from the mid-90s. Just 2 years ago, we achieved a solar sail to actually adjust its own orbit around Earth just using solar power. So that's like literally we have made the solar sail, which is awesome. Oh, Rebel Girl Staff, thank you. Yeah, it's crazy. So like this is one of those, as the Star Trek science person. This is the perfect intersection.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh.
We love it. This is one of those real tech that that does work, and we got to see it in this episode. Now, the story itself, right, is that the ancient Bajorans, us in this circumstance, have built a solar sail. They were trying to do deep space exploration. They actually had a crew on board. Now, this method of travel will not get you faster than the speed of light. It will just get you going very, very fast. So that's why this was always a myth, is that they were able to get to Cardassia, like, alive, which is supposedly, light years and light years away.
Yeah.
But then because Jake and Sisko are recreating this, they actually find themselves in a tachyon eddy, which then throws them at faster than light speeds, and then they end up at Cardassia, and they're like, oh, that's how that happened. So tachyon eddies are a little bit on the fiction-y side of things, but it's a great explanation, and we love it.
Well, yeah, and I love, so at the end, the Cardassian literally, who is it that greets them? Is it, what's his name?
God, I don't have that written down.
Oh,
if anyone remembers in the chat, go for it.
But he's basically like begrudgingly going, welcome.
Was it Gul Dukat?
Was it?
Hang on. Carry on. But yeah, he's basically
he's like, damn it.
Yeah, whatever.
They proved that it happened.
Yeah.
Crap.
Exactly. Oh, so good.
Yeah. It was Dukat. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, so funny. What a jerk. Gul Dukat. Yeah, he even gave him fireworks.
Right.
So good.
He did. Welcome. Yeah. So, but that's interesting though, because like that was in the ancient times, and we don't really know kind of what happened exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Right? But them finding that tachyon eddy is kind of like that's them going like, that's what must have happened.
That's what happened.
Because otherwise physics said no for that technology they have for the time. But assuming that tachyon eddy was still there, and what happened to them, then that actually fulfills that sort of legend. So it's pretty cool. I like it a lot.
It's so cool. Yeah.
Yes, and thank you, Christoph, for putting that link in the chat. If anyone wants to check it out, the Planetary Society, of which our good friend, the doctor from Voyager, Robert Picardo, is a board member. They're the ones that funded the light sail. So it all comes together.
Awesome.
And
De-Starfire, that's kind of what I was getting at, is like, why didn't they destroy the ship? Why didn't they apparently destroy the ancient Bajoran ship? Like, what was that about?
That's a good question. Well, if it was the ancient Bajoran ship, they wouldn't have had, other than just being Cardassians.
Right.
That would have been the first interaction between Bajorans and Cardassians. And then this one, you have, Sisko on board, which would create more.
He didn't know that at the time, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it would have just been a Bajoran ship entering Cardassian space. Like, to me, that might be something where you would just,
But it's not. But is it a Bajoran ship though? Because it's like this
True.
ancient old. That'd be like,
very Leonardo da Vinci looking machine, by the way.
That's like if you were in modern naval warfare,
right,
against a modern, technology, and then you've got some rickety sailboat shows up. You're at least going to ask questions, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
that's true.
No worries. And let me see. Skyship, can you check that link? I think we're okay. Soon the transporter. Oh, Q Continuum. Thank you. Let me see. I'm just trying to catch up on the chat there. They likely did destroy, is what Daib said, which is how they knew it was true and why Dukat was able to claim that the Cardassians affirmed the proof prior to the Federation proving it. It was like a generational ace in the hole. Yeah, clever. Interesting. I mean...
Right.
Yeah. It is interesting. But I love the science of it. It is very, very cool.
That's awesome.
All right, so the idle observations from this one. Jake sets Sisko up with Cassidy Yates.
Is that this one or the next one?
This one? Oh, no. That is the next one. Sorry, I got ahead of us. That's what I was going to say. I knew I wanted to say something about the setting up, though. Between the Mirror Universe episode and this one, they are continuing to lay the groundwork for Sisko to date someone. And I feel like this is very intelligent on behalf of the writers to take the time to lay that groundwork so as the viewer, we don't feel weird about him suddenly dating someone and we're like, well, wait, how do we know he feels some way about his wife? Or how does Jake feel about him dating? And they've got ahead of that.
They set that up. Good. Exactly. Yeah, that was great. Yeah. And I think, so the other part of this episode, the B plot was somebody visiting who Bashir knew from school, I guess.
Oh, yeah, that is a really good one.
Yeah,
that this woman, right, that he was in school with is on the station and he's like super freaked out and like embarrassed to be in her presence, and turns out that like she's really jealous of him and she's being awful to him.
Yeah. So it was another one of those moments of like him realizing that he's like in a good spot, like, he because she's like on this explorer ship that he could have gotten that assignment or something, but he didn't because he missed one question on the exam and she got all of them right, something like that. I didn't quite connect. And then he's like, so I could have been on this other ship, and sort of projecting that she's got this better thing going, but she's like, no, actually I don't get to do that much stuff, and like this, what you're doing here seems incredible. And it's one of those moments of actually meeting the person that you think is doing so much better than you.
Yeah, it's really interesting and what those expectations are. So before we go to the next episode, I just want to take a second to shout out everyone who followed. So thank you. We have D&D Jordan Lee, Introvert Mo, Frozen Egg Puck. Daib gave out a bunch of gift subs, so thank you for doing that. DL Classer, Chaos Mage Cat, excellent, Stephen Kill, and Rebel Girl Steph. Thank you for being here. It's very nice. Okay, and then you put the note in about Bashir and O'Brien singing.
Oh yeah. Loved it. That was so good.
Oh, and so the question he got wrong, which I think is what they brought up in a previous episode where he was in the coma and they were giving him a hard time about it, was the gangliotic fiber it was like the pre-gangliotic fiber for the post-gangliotic nerve, and he was like, no one would ever miss that. You missed one thing. And then they came back to this. I mean, they're great at the serialized storytelling here because it's all woven in. And Bad Panda said this seems a bit meta, like the criticism of Deep Space Nine isn't as cool as a space station is not as cool as a ship. And I agree, and I think that they did that not just with Bashir, but prior they'd done that with Cisco, of this being like the shit assignment, right? That's not what anyone would want. And it kind of like Bashir got this field assignment that was like not the fancy one. Also reminds me of the Lower Decks. The Lower Decks episode where they the guys transferring the I don't have them all memorized yet, but where they want to transfer to the big fancy ship, and it turns out the engineer on that wants to go onto their small ship because he's like, all we do is just save people all the time, and it's just crazy, and this is a good assignment. And so I kind of like that.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Oh, thank you, J.R. Illinois. Thanks for mentioning that one. No worries. And it's so good. All right. So they'd mentioned that a couple times. Yeah, no, D Starfire, they are all written differently. So, okay. Next one we're going to get to is Family Business.
Oh, this was so fun.
Frankie. I love it. Okay, Skyship, thank you. J.R. Illinois, if you want to post that link again, you mentioned the Kontiki mission. You wanted to post the link to, so you can go ahead and do that now. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so Family Business. Brunch is an agent of the Ferengi Commerce Authority, and Quark gets served a writ of accountability for improper supervision of a family member. Quark's mother, Ishka, has been charged with earning profit as a woman. And
the horror!
And as the family's eldest male, Quark is held responsible. And all I wrote in topic 1 is, could it be misogyny? Which is a joke that we had with Mary Chifo.
Little inside joke.
Passed around a lot. Could it be misogyny? So that's what this one is. It's Ferengi. Yeah.
This is one of those really frustrating Quark episodes where like
that's really funny. Sticking up for Ferengi women by being clothed.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Solidarity.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? Oh, yeah. So this is one of those frustrating Quark episodes, and they're often all frustrating, where it begins and he just like, I want to punch him. I just like, what? Like, this is so misogynistic and awful that what you're saying, what you're doing. But then he kind of it redeems himself by the end, and Quark learns something like,
we have a teaching moment. Yes.
Yeah. And then it was like, oh, okay. They're a family. They're dysfunctional, but they're a family. Like, it was so much fun to see them as like with their mom. Like,
they are. So this
is so awesome.
The first appearance of Ishka. It's the first appearance of Brunt, who is played by Jeffrey Combs, whom we love. And it's the first appearance of Cassidy Yates. So a lot of new characters in this one, and we love them. Brunt will be back, and I weirdly love him because it's Jeffrey Combs. But that's and like you said, the family interaction. Yeah, Quark. Hi, Mom. Rom. Moogie.
Oh, I love Rom so much.
So good. Yeah. I love how she treats them differently, how they treat her differently. You just get that family sibling dynamic. It's just so brilliant. Yeah. And, she's like, Quark, Rom.
Yeah.
And then the fact that, like, she tricks Quark to leave and go deliver the message and then tells Rom, like, I actually tricked him. And so great.
Well, and, I mean, Rom pulls a trick, too, which I thought was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Like, dude, like, there's more to him than meets the eye. Like,
yeah.
Which is awesome.
It is. It's great to see him do that. It's so funny. And that, Rom tricks Quark So basically what happened, if you don't remember this one, sorry, just a recap. Essentially, they find out that Ishka's been taking her allowance that she gets from the elder male, which is Quark, because it's a misogynistic society, and investing it as so she invested it, made a profit, and then they find out that she's actually been like investing money under lots of different aliases and making a ton of money. And Quark is going to like be completely bankrupt by paying all the fees on this one. And it's they essentially like so she convinces Quark that like to go talk to them, or then Rom says like, oh, she's gonna make a deal with you and give you half of her profits if you go back. And so she goes, yeah, and then she agrees to like pay the reparations. And then in the ultimate moment is where she tells Rom like, I lied about how much, it was only a third of how much money I made. So she's still racking it in, and I love that.
The best.
Yeah, so great. And we love him.
We love it. Yeah.
So yeah, then we get the plot of Jake setting his dad up with Captain Cassidy Yates.
And they talk about baseball. It's awesome.
That's really
and yeah, I don't know if Jake knew that about the baseball thing or not, but if he did, I'd like to sign up to be set up by Jake like anytime. Anytime. It'd be great.
That's awesome.
He's clearly very good at it.
Right, exactly. He knows what he's doing. He's got an eye for it. That's really sweet. And then D. Starfire said, wasn't the actual fine for the crime a pittance, but the bribes and fines for lying to the authorities was the crippling part of it. Yeah. And then, it's all very topical with what's legally and not legally done in investing and profits. Who'd have thought? Turns out when the downtrodden want to get in on the game, suddenly that's not allowed. But I digress. All right.
Right.
Any others on these? How'd you like Cassidy? First appearance of her. Did we see her?
Oh, yeah. She's the lady. Okay.
Yeah, the girlfriend. Sorry, I was jumping around.
It's okay. I liked her a lot. I really, that was awesome.
She's great. Yeah, she's really good.
Super into it.
Yeah. No, we love her. All right, so the next episode, we get a good Bajoran rebellion episode.
Yes.
Shakaar. So this is the Kai Wynn has been appointed on an interim basis to be first manager of the Bajoran Provisional Government, because Kai Wynn
interim,
yes, that's gonna happen. When Kai Wynn wants Kira to convince Shakaar, who was Kira's leader during the Resistance. Hi Jedi. We're talking about Bajoran religion. Your favorite. The partner
My
has
favorite
entered
too.
the chat. Yeah. Wants to return the equipment. Kira's reluctant to confront her friend and mentor, but agrees to do it for the good of Bajor. And then, of course, Kai Wynn was messing with all of them and gets called out, and then realizes that the competitive election against Shakaar will expose how her actions brought Bajor to the brink of civil war. Who'd have thought? And decides to step down from the race. So yeah, Bajoran politics.
Fun times. Yeah. Although I think the more interesting part of this episode was the splintering off of the Bajoran, rebel. They'd all banded together as rebels and against the Cardassians and, fought tooth and nail to win that fight. But now a couple of years have passed, and so there's this splintering. There's some people who are the police and the enforcers, some people who are just sort of living their normal lives, but, still dealing with the aftermath of the conflicts and, not the economic equity is not a thing yet, and so there's all this stuff that they're trying to figure out. And that scene where they're the police are tracking them, but they're trying to also track the police, and they want to kill the leader of the police, whatever, group. And Kira's like, that's so-and-so. We were in like a cell block together fighting the same fight. I can't kill him.
Yeah.
And that was a really interesting moment because he said the same thing. I can't either. So they just go and talk to them, and they're like, we're on the same side.
Yeah.
Like, that was only a few years ago that, like, let's figure this out. I really liked that moment.
Yeah, it is really good, and one thing I appreciate is how much they're able to lay in all of these people from Kira's past, but they have such a good groundwork for that resistance that we understand who they are fairly quickly, and they do a great job with it. Yeah, Music Paladin said Kaiwin's particularly passive-aggressively swarmy in this one.
Yeah,
completely.
Yeah. I mean, that will be all.
Yes.
You can leave now.
But she's really making a play.
Oh yeah. Oh, a big play.
Big play, like big move.
A big scary play, like, and given what's happened here recently, like inciting a civil war, I was like, ouch.
Yeah.
No, that's
Yeah, I know. Right up. Kaiwin, I say her name with the same disdain that Borg Queen whispered Janeway.
Perfect.
Yeah. It's as mentioned in the chat, and for me personally, I love to hate Kaiwin.
Mm-hmm. Oh, she's amazing as a character.
Yes. She's
because she's not like physically aggressive. She's just all mental games and manipulation and talking quietly, which is so much scarier than yelling. Because she I don't think we've ever seen her yell.
Oh, no, she just chips away at your soul. And JR Illinois pointed out, in case people weren't aware, Louise Fletcher was almost as scary, the actress, as Kaiwin as she was in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, because that's also terrifying.
Same thing.
Yeah, for which she won an Oscar. And then Daib said, I actually think she was too selfish to even think about the possibility that her actions may have caused a civil war. I think she's making a similar play, though, that the Dominion has been making, that they want to incite internal violence so she can, like, emerge as the leader.
Yeah.
And take over.
That was my impression, yeah.
Yeah. She is.
My child, barf. Exactly.
Yeah. Every time she says "my child," a little part of our souls die. She is. And I've already promised this, that once we finish all of Deep Space Nine, we are going to have an entire Sunday brunch discussion about Kaiwin as a character, because I think she's fabulous. It's
becoming clearer and clearer to me that that's a must-have.
Yes. Yeah. She's so good. But I think this is one of those things where she thought she could get away with more than she could, and then realized what situation she was in and backs up. That she's like, oh,
she does. Yeah.
This could get out. I played too much cards here. Like, I'm gonna back up and step down and wait until my next move. And yeah, the DS9 drinking game. Take a swig every time she says "my child."
Oh, yikes!
Get in trouble.
Although we maybe should do that.
But yeah. And then Daib said, "Oh, we could do a Garrick-focused Sunday after that. We can do that."
Yeah.
She's so good. Overplayed her hand. That was the phrase I was trying to think of.
Absolutely.
For sure she did. Also, can we just appreciate too that O'Brien, this is because we should probably keep going. As much as we could talk about Kaiwin all day.
Oh!
But yes. When O'Brien was winning the dart competition against the Romulan and then goes back to grab a drink and twists his shoulder and
his dart throwing arm. But it's so funny. Like, I thought he was faking it for some reason. Like, the way that they acted that, like, him and Bashir, they had these, like, moments of, like, eye contact, and, like, it seemed like he was sort of overplaying it somehow. Like, oh, ow, my shoulder just did something. It seemed like it was very fakey. And Bashir was like, oh, let me look at your shoulder to see if something's wrong. Like, but then I was like, but he was winning the game. So why would he do that? And it was actually an injury.
Yeah, but I mean, but there could be that, you know, when I was like 10, I think I faked a sprained ankle to get out of running the mile. So, you know?
Well, yeah, no, exactly. I mean, but it seemed to me like he was faking it for some reason, but they didn't. It turned out it was a real thing.
Yeah. Falls out of the zone.
Yeah, falls out of the zone.
Poor Brian.
The zone.
Yeah, agree, Rebel Girl. The Miles-Julian friendship is just one of the best ones.
It's so good.
Yeah. And I don't think because so for me, I believed it because he was winning.
Right.
But they don't actually say one way or another because Julian does pull him off. But O'Brien has pulled this crap before where he doesn't, you know, when they were in their squash tournament.
Exactly.
Not wanting too much pressure on him. So, yeah, I love it.
Yeah. And Cork was like, all I did was hand him a drink, and now I owe the bar 15-1 or something.
So good. That's so great.
Poor Cork.
I know, but this is, again, O'Brien has done this where he's thrown a match because Quark is, like, trying to profit off of his athletic skill, which is funny.
So maybe that was it. I don't know.
Who knows? All right, so we've got 2 more to get through here.
All right.
Facets. This is an interesting one. This is the Trill-focused episode where Jadzia Dax goes under her Giantara, which is the Trill rite of closure, where she gets to meet all of Dax's previous hosts by transferring them into the minds of her friends. So we get a lot of Trill backstory. We get a lot of Jadzia's insecurity, where we've been focusing on Bashir for a while. Now we get to see a little bit insecurity from Jadzia. And, what were your thoughts on this one?
I really liked this episode. This was a lot of very interesting nuance to the Trill host relationship. And it was, you know, I liked that they spent most of the time on Curzon. The him and Odo thing, I think almost took a little bit away for me because, it was interesting, but I would have preferred more of like Curzon with Dax and Cisco. You know, that would have, rather than them throwing in the little side thing of Odo doesn't want to leave either. Like,
right.
I get it, but at the same time, it sort of made it a little bit diluted, like the whole Curzon with Dax thing, which I thought ended up really sweet. That we learn about their relationship. Or not their relationship, but we learned that Curzon had feelings for her. And the acting of the other hosts with the Kira especially, like that was amazing. She turned into an entirely different person. I was like, that is really well done.
Yeah.
So that huge shout out to that.
Yeah. I agree, Music Paladin, in terms of what we saw in Discovery, that I'm sure this was required viewing. But I think it's the credit to the actors that they pulled this episode off. This episode could have been so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But it's a credit to the writing and a credit to the actors that they were able to pull this off, because we saw an episode like this in TNG that did not get pulled off very well, and it's because Brent Spiner was already burnt out from doing another episode. They had a quickly written one. This is the Masks episode where he had to change all the personalities. And so when I see those plots, I start to get very uncomfortable because of that. But yeah, the Masks one.
Yeah, I was worried, actually. And then when it started and Kira, like, I mean, I was just like, dude, like, she just changed her entire face, her body, her voice. Like, it all fit together impeccably.
Yeah. And they all did. It went from one to the other. I thought particularly O'Brien as Tobin, just a few minutes of where he's like, sorry. He's great. Lita's the gymnast. Yep. Shout out to
Yeah.
Chase Masterson. Like, yeah, they're all so good.
So good.
Cisco's creepy as hell as the murder guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, really uncomfortable. I wasn't wild about the Curzon storyline, just as it started to play out, where because it's that, and as someone caveating, as longtime viewers will know this of me, I'm always about the mentor-mentee romantic transition relationship thing. Like, that's my jam. But because I didn't quite have that built up, it was uncomfortable for me when Jadzia, is wanting his approval and then realizing that it was withheld because of his feelings for her. That made me a little uncomfortable, but I do think they close it out well. But I agree with Paladin. That's kind of it was like that dirty old man vibe.
Yeah.
And that just made me a little viscerally uncomfortable, but then I think that they close it out a little bit. Like, I bought it by the end.
They pull it back enough, and I agree. If I was like, how much older was he than her? Like, oh God, like.
Yeah.
But I think to me, it was balanced enough that it wasn't so cringy and so awful. And the way that they end it, I thought was. They pulled it back. Like, they didn't make it so wrong at the end. But also it was because the way that Odo is involved with it, to me, made it seem like we weren't getting the full Curzon. Because of how Odo, his body and DNA responded to this transference, to me made it feel like there's a little bit of Odo in what Curzon is saying and being. And so I don't know, it just seemed a little strange that they chose Odo to be the one for Curzon.
Getting into that, and I think, Rouge said that they found it a little cringeworthy. These types of episodes I don't usually enjoy watching because of that, but because we're doing a rewatch instead of normally skipping it, as I sometimes do, going back and watching it with that feeling of like, oh God, this is going to be weird and uncomfortable. Like, I was surprised that they do pull it off pretty well. So I think that the Odo was intentional, and here's the reason. Because they've been building up his love for Kira.
Yeah.
This idea now that he's half Curzon, half Odo, and Odo has been holding this unrequited love for a colleague as opposed to a mentee. He feels the need to say that he gets that extra push to admit that he was in love because Odo's starting to see the ramifications, and through Curzon to feel the ramifications of not admitting that you were in love with someone. So,
yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I kind of like that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Thinking about it, that kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah. But so, like with what happened with Odo, I was thinking like, with this sort of procedure, like you'd think there'd be more of a vetting process or more of a like, maybe we should think about how a shapeshifter would receive a memory from a Trill. Maybe we should think about how a Ferengi would respond to this. Like,
yeah.
But she's just like, all of you people are my friends. Here's my memories. Like,
should we not check that other species, particularly one that's trying to take over the galaxy, like might react to a Trill? But
yeah. Might we explore this?
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking up something really quick. So if you want to check out the other points that we made for this episode, I have a funny story to tell about this one, but I need to look up the details because it just occurred to me.
Let's see. We have Odo keeps tabs on everybody.
When he admits that he's been watching them all. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like Bashir's like, oh, you don't keep tabs on everybody, do you? And Odo's like, no, but you should really think about that muffin that you had this morning.
Right. That was it. Exactly. This is so funny. I love it. Okay.
Oh, this is the Nog.
Yes.
Yes.
Nog with the Starfleet exam. Yeah, do you want to go into this one?
No real like major thoughts. Just I'm so happy for him.
Yeah.
And of course, like Quark rigged the exam and all that. Like,
yeah.
Quark. I mean, it's interesting. Quark is really dealing with seeing traditionalistness. Traditionalistness.
Right.
I haven't eaten yet today. Like he's feeling threatened by Nog and Rom sort of expanding Ferenginess and doing things that Ferengis aren't supposed to do, and I think it's kind of interesting to see Quark deal with this, with Nog in particular, going into Starfleet.
Right, which we actually meant to come back to and didn't. But
really?
With the family business episode, that's where we find out that Quark, and they've alluded to it before, but that he felt very insecure about the fact that like he's not as good at business as his mom is and how his dad was. And so that there is that level where it's like you have to shoehorn yourself into this. And then he sees Rom and Nog like not, and that's hard for him to reconcile.
Right. Well, we forgot to mention that in the family business one, he realizes that his dad was not good at business.
That was it. Yeah, his dad was not good at business. That was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. But it's very sweet to see Nog actually succeed at it. And
and he tried so hard, and he was studying, and
and his dad paid for that uniform.
And Quark is like, they give them to them, and Nog is like, well, now Brom's now they'll have too.
Yeah, exactly. It's so sweet.
He's so positive. Like he spins everything that could be a negative toward him into a positive.
I know. It's so good. Okay, so the thing I was looking up, this is weird. This got weird when I started looking it up. So Tobin Dax as O'Brien, Jadzia mentions that she had finished his work on Fermat's last theorem, which was this old, for people who don't know, and I'll make this quick because I know we only have one episode left, but Fermat's last theorem was this thing, this mathematician Fermat from centuries ago had put in this proof, like put in his notes, a squared, or a to the n plus b to the n does not equal c to the n for any n greater than 2. Because we all know a squared plus b squared equals c squared, but if you take the 2 and make that a 3 or any number higher, you can't solve that. And he wrote that in the margin of his notes and then wrote, like, the proof is too long to fit here. And so mathematicians for centuries were trying to prove this. It was a very, very difficult proof. And they couldn't actually prove that that was the case. So it was called Fermat's last theorem. And it was proven by a guy named Andrew Wiles in 1995. This episode came out in 1995. And I was looking it up. The paper is published where they prove he had published an attempted proof in 1993 and it got disproven. And then he published a redemption to it in 1995. And the paper came out in May 1995. This episode came out in June 1995.
Oh my gosh.
And so, but when they were writing this episode, Fermat's last theorem had not been proven. But by the time it aired, it had been proven. And they mentioned Fermat's last theorem. It is so weird to me. That's weird.
Wild.
That's wild. So there's your Trek trivia history.
That's awesome.
Yes. And yeah, Bad Panda, I don't remember what episode, but he does mention it. And it was, but I think too, because it was actively trying to be solved in the late 80s and early 90s, and mathematicians were so close to it, like it was in that discourse for the writers to have something to talk about. And yeah, Jadzia, because Jadzia specifically says it was he had an alternative proof. And then she calls out that, like, maybe she got her desire to find alternative methods and alternative solutions from him. So they call out that, like, they assume that it has been solved, but he had a different way of solving it. So it's really cool.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, any last... All right, last one. The Adversary. Shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay. Sisko is now captain. Hooray! At his party that to his promotion Ambassador Krasinski basically pulls him aside, and he's like, hey, there's been a coup on Zenkethi. You need to go take care of this, because this shiz is not good for what's going on. And it basically, they find out that changelings are impersonating people, and that the ambassador was a changeling, and that he had been a changeling the whole time. And they've laid the groundwork very well for this, where O'Brien, they're on this mission, and it all seems like a standard thing, but O'Brien's like, someone's down here. Like, who's down here? And then he sees Bashir. He's like, Bashir, what the hell are you doing down here? And then, of course, Bashir's like, I was never in the Jeffries tube. And so they know there's a changeling among them, and it becomes very Battlestar Galactica once they find out that Cylons can be humans. And they're like, yeah.
Who's who? Yep.
So this is the season finale, season 3 finale. So
season 3 finale.
What'd you think of this one?
Actually, funny you say that, because it didn't feel too much like a finale. It was, because it was basically just a classic Body Snatcher episode, right? Which was super fun, and I loved it. But maybe I'm forgetting how it ended. So, like,
all they say is, sorry, carry on.
No, it's okay.
The last line of the episode is when Odo's being all creepy and weird, and then he comes in and he's like, the last thing the changeling said to me was, you are too late, we are everywhere.
That's right.
Smash the credits. Yes.
Right. We're everywhere. Which, again, maybe that felt anticlimactic, because I was like, well, yeah, like, it seems that way. But funny. Yeah, we're everywhere. Like, so you just don't know now who's who, what's what.
Yeah. And they did a good job, though, of, because they already, in the previous episode, this is where, I mean, we harped on this a lot, but I think this set of episodes is where you see how good the writing is and the serialization, and I think Ira Stephen Bear probably has a lot to do with that, where they're laying all these groundworks for previous episodes. Like, we just had that previous episode where Odo mentioned to Bashir, like, oh, how are those 2 things you ate for breakfast this morning?
Yeah.
And then in this one, when the changelings both show up, you have Odo and the changeling who looks like Odo, and O'Brien's in the middle of them, and he's like, well, you had this for lunch the other day, and like, so-and-so. The other one's like, yeah, and he forgot his spoon. Anyone could know that, like, because Odo's super observant like that. So they do a good job with that.
Yeah.
And it's just a good, I mean, it was a great episode. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was very contained, so there's like, I don't think there wasn't a lot else that was happening, because it was just them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the whole episode, yeah.
That was pretty much it, just trying to figure out who the changeling was. Which, again, this is before Battlestar Galactica. This is, we have Invasion of the Body Snatchers is obviously a classic thing, so they do a really, really good job with it.
Yeah. I loved, like, that moment when they're taking all the blood, because they figure out that's how they can do it, and this teeny little moment where you I don't even know if we see him actually switch the vial, but they do a close-up on his hand, and then a couple minutes later you realize he switched them or used his own or something to, like,
yeah, like they set it up so it looks like Bashir's the changeling really well. And then he's not. It's so good. It's really, really good. And and I think maybe that this has as a season finale, has a better hit knowing what's coming, I guess, because it's like, I know how often this is going to come back, that they can't trust anyone, but
yeah, and that's probably true. Like, normally a season finale would be, oh my god, we don't know what's going to happen, but sometimes they can be actually more profound when you do know what's coming.
Right. Yeah. And like, but the last season finale that we had, that's when they revealed that the founders were the head of the Dominion. So that was like a big thing. And it's pretty crazy. But I like it. I always say an episode is good if I find myself shouting at the television. And when I was watching this one, I'm just like bundled up and I'm just like, disengage, auto-destruct, disengage, auto-destruct. Because they kill him, and then the ship is still set to auto-destruct, and I start to get very nervous, so they've stressed me out enough that I start screaming at the television. It's a good episode. Yeah, and we don't always need to have cliffhanger, huge reveal episodes, finales, as Turquoise pointed out, because remember, people had to wait between season 3 and season 4.
Right. So, I have the luxury of not
rolling right into it.
Mm.
They have some cute moments during his ceremony where he gets promoted. Everyone's really sweet about it. Kira's like, does this mean I'm not allowed to disagree with you anymore? And he's like, no, just means I'm never wrong. That was really good. I forget who says it was like, as someone who doesn't really care about rank, like, I'm still really proud of you. And then Eddington comes up and he's like, well, as someone who does care a lot about rank, like, I'm really proud of you.
I don't like Eddington. He gets on my nerves. And he's only been on screen for like a grand total of like 10 minutes.
He'll be back.
Okay, good. Good times.
I'm really curious to see. Yeah, Eddington's an interesting one. He's one I always like forget about, but then I remember like he does have a little minor arc, and it's kind of interesting. Cool. So yeah, cool. He's a jerk. Yeah, Eddington is Samantha's Barile. I don't know why I hate him. I just hate him. My Vedic Barile. Hate Vedic Barile. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. But all right, they're everywhere. They're everywhere. Yeah. I can't wait for season 4. I freaking love season 4. I'm so excited.
I'm excited.
So, for what's coming up then, we'll wrap things up. Thank you everyone for hanging out for a couple hours at this point. It's my birthday next Sunday, so while I would love to share it with all of you, I'm going to spend it in pajamas playing video games. So we will be back in 2 weeks. And we will be discussing the first 6 episodes of season 4. So episode 1 through 6. Bear in mind, I think Way of the Warrior is combined on Netflix. So if you're watching it on Netflix and it just says Way of the Warrior is 1 episode, it'll be 1 through 5 that we're going to talk about. Yeah, I know that the point of PJs on Twitch, like playing games in pajamas is like the point of Twitch, but like, yeah.
Yeah.
I do know that. Thank you. But I will be back tomorrow to play Mass Effect 3. So we'll be kicking off our Mass Effect Mondays again with Mass Effect 3 starting tomorrow. So definitely check that out. Thank you to Samantha for coming back and sharing.
Happy to be back.
Yay! Yay! So Samantha and I will be back to talk about the first 6 episodes of Season 4 of Deep Space Nine in 2 weeks on Sunday. I will be back on here streaming Mass Effect and other shenanigans coming up this week, so check that out. And thank you all. It was really nice to see everyone. So
yeah,
thanks. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel if you missed this. This video will be up there probably by tomorrow. And it was great to see some new people. So yes, Rebel Girl Steph, welcome. Jared Illinois is fabulous. And I think that's it. Oh, Klingon Pop Warrior, yay. All right, everyone take care of yourselves. Have a great day, and take care. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.